enter the meeting and we will start. I will ask you please to mute your mics. Hello, good morning. Okay, I'll just give 1 minute more to start with this webinar. Just for a reminder that this meeting is recorded, so it's going to be recorded. So if you want to appear in this webinar, just turn off the camera. Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Walter. I have my colleagues here from the digital cluster as well to give us some support. So, but it's brilliant as well if you can admit them. Okay, so let's start. Good morning for some of you and good afternoon for the rest. Welcome to this webinar on travel intelligence and smart pricing management, the importance of contextual information to make decisions more efficient. My name is Gemma Espina. I'm the head of the European and Innovation Projects at Cluster Digital of Catalonia and partner of Tourism 4.0. The European Project Tourism 4.0 provides capacity building, technology transfer, support, and assistance to tourism SMEs to help you adopt emerging digital technologies to improve your productivity, sustainability, and business performance. So this is the third of a series of webinars that are being organized under the Tourism 4.0 project with a focus on business SME perspective. First, we will start with an explanation of the importance of contextual information to make decisions more efficient. And then we will continue with a case study based on travel intelligence platform. And afterwards, we will have some questions and answers, time for some questions and answers. But in the meanwhile, you can ask questions in the chat or raise your hand up at any time. That's no problem. We will give you the word and you can ask the question that you may have. For today's session, we have invited Mr. Carlos Sendra, who is the Chief Marketing Officer at Maurian's Technology. Maurian is a company that provides travel intelligence services, analyzes and anticipates tourism trends, and provides actionable insights regarding each stage of a traveler's journey. Mr. Carlos, welcome and thank you for your time. The floor is yours, so you can start with the presentation.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you everyone for attending and thank you the Cluster Digital of Catalonia for the invitation of sharing a little of what we do and our know-how expertise on the area of travel intelligence. I will briefly introduce what we are, what we do. Then I'll go through, as Jamie was just introducing, I'll go through just a brief introductory of what travel intelligence and what does context analytics means. And then we will go through to the most interesting part, I guess, which is a live example using the travel intelligence on how we can use all that information in order to make real and actionable decisions, right? More efficient decisions. So well, let's start by what's Mabrian, what we do. Mabrian, by the way, means making bright analytics. This is one of the most questions I have when I do a presentation. It's a Spanish company based in Menorca. Menorca is a small island. So we are founded in Menorca. Our headquarters are here. I'm in Menorca right now. But we also have an office in Barcelona, and we work globally nowadays in more than 40 countries globally, providing information based in data analytics, right? We are focused only on travel and tourism sector. And what we basically do is gathering and buying data from global sources at a global scale in order to provide information to our clients, right? This sounds easy, but it has a really complex path in between what's data, what's information, and how we can help our clients to make better decisions, right? We work mainly for destinations. 80% of our clients globally are destinations, from governments, country size to local size, but also work intensively with private sector, especially with hotel chains, in terms of what's the subject of this webinar, which is this smart pricing, right? This way of doing revenue management according to the contextual changes. So including this type of information on their dynamic pricing, which is one of the examples we're going to go through, right? As Jamie was mentioning, please don't hesitate to stop me and ask whatever you may ask, because probably it's going to be interesting to interact and not just letting me talk for 1 hour or 50 minutes. It's going to be bored probably. And also I want to apologize if you see me sneezing or even blowing my mouth, my nose, because I'm with some allergy, right? So sorry about that. Okay, I'll share my screen. I promise a really brief presentation, and I'll go through the example, right? Let's go. Could you confirm if you see my screen?
Yeah, perfectly.
Perfect, thank you. So starting by, which could be something obvious, but still today we have to defend the most of the times why travel intelligence, why it's as basic as information is a must, right? It could be really obvious, but today still we have to explain that the world is changing really fast, but the travelers and the travel trends are even changing faster, right? We are exposed to a really high uncertainty environment, right? And we are seeing now, this week, weather disasters. Not even in South Asia, now here in Spain, in Europe, a lot of effects of the climate change, security, politics. We are living a war in Europe, health crisis, nothing to do about this. You all know what I mean. So it's a combination of the perfect ingredients to have a really, really high level of uncertainty, right? Also, the travelers are changing. The world is changing, but the travelers as well. Travelers are more and more looking for different experiences, and also taking into account the sustainable part, the sustainable matter of their actions, their trips, right? So there is only one way to be able to be resilient and adapt to the context, which is knowing what's going on, right? Identifying the trends and trying to predict the future dynamics is the only way to be more efficient, to adapt and be more efficient, right? So basically, when we gather and analyze data from different sources and different dimensions and perspectives, we are managing to reduce the uncertainty in order to make better decisions, right? We will go through a specific example of dynamic pricing, but we could go through specific examples of, for example, expansion when analyzing to do an investment of a hotel chain, or even more strategic decisions for destinations like, shall I negotiate with an airline or not to open specific routes or not, etc., etc. Shall I build another airport, another port, etc., right? So more strategic as well. The basics of what's travel intelligence, in our opinion, right? The most of the times, the clients or the potential clients ask us if we sell data, right? Since we are known like a big data company, we actually don't sell data. What the data is our raw material, right? So what we do is getting data in order to climb in this pyramid of what we understand like a travel intelligence, to help our clients making decisions. So it's not about getting or gathering data, it's about moving forward these steps, right? So from data, we gather data from different global sources, as I mentioned, from global OTAs, Expedia, Booking, TripAdvisor, social networks, Instagram, Twitter, credit card data from MasterCard, air connectivity data from the GDSs, Travelport, Amadeus, Sabre, Zidium, flight prices from OTAs as well, telecommunications data from the telecommunications company, and mobile data applications. Yes, please.
Sorry, I will remind you, if you don't have any question, just turn off your mic. Thank you very much. If you have a question, just raise your hand up and we will give you the word. Thanks. Carlos, you may continue. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. But again, if you have any doubt, just go ahead and ask it, right? So it's not a matter of having a lot of data, a matter of quantity, but a matter of what we can do with all that data. And so from all the sources I was mentioning right now, what we do is gathering, structuring, and filtering that data in order to get information, right? To get information of that data, first, we need to understand the limitations of every data source and every dimension of data we are working with, because there is no any data source which is perfect. So all of them has implicit bias, all of them has limitations that are really important to understand in order to use that data for make a better decision, right? Not the worst decision that could be also happening, right? So when we gather, structurate, and cross-analyze all that information, understanding the limitations, we already have information, right? Which is already something really valuable in order to make decisions. But to climb to the next stage, which is the knowledge, we need to have contextual information. I mean, we need to know about the sector. We need to know about the tourism and travel sector in order to transform information into knowledge, which is really important. And to do that, what we do is having a team of experts in tourism that are advising our clients on the trends they are seeing on the information we're providing them through the travel intelligence platform I will show you now, right? So that's an important, really important step in order to make use of the data and the information, right? And the last step would be making decisions, right? Which is responsibility of our clients. I mean, we don't do decisions on all that knowledge. We provide that knowledge at the moment they know it, they need it in order to make those decisions, right? Until we get to this top stage of making decisions, we are not really doing travel intelligence. This is how we work normally, right? And this is a process. I mean, this is not about starting today and start making decisions based on information tomorrow. It's a matter of culture and the mindset change the most of the time that the organizations, both public and private, need to go through in order to be able to do that, right? It's a process, a gradual process, I would say. So what really enriches our analysis is the different dimensions of data we can cross-analyze. On one hand, we got transactional data from the travel and tourism sector, and in the other hand, we got the behavioral data of the travelers. So that would be this second part is the spontaneous behavior of the travelers that we analyze, but without asking anything. I mean, comparing to what is the traditional way of research in travel and tourism, which are the surveys, which are really valuable and brings a lot of information in terms of qualitative information. In this case, what we do is not asking anything, just listening, analyzing the spontaneous behavior of the travelers, right? And then obviously the transactional data that we get from the sector. Transactional data tell us what is happening, and the behavioral data tell us why this is happening, right? With all these together, right, we can track and monitor the full, what we know as the full travel cycle of the traveler, right? Just splitting the cycle in the four typical stages of the travel decision: the inspirational part, decision-making part, the behavioral part, and the post-experience or opinion part. As you see here, in this cycle, right? At every stage, we use different sources in order to identify what we need, right? At Inspirational, basically we track the searches, the inspirational demand not confirmed yet, in order to find what are the demand trends moving globally, right? Always thinking on tourism. To do that, we use social media listening, flight searches, OTA searches, Google searches. All that can bring us some light of how the demand trends in terms of travel are moving. Then we analyze the decision process. So what are the prices they are finding on their searches? What's the flight connectivity? What's the actual bookings? What's the accommodation offer at destination, prices, and some metrics that can explain how the segment, the source market we're analyzing is actually making a decision of buying or going on vacation or traveling to a destination, right? Then during the behavior, the trip, the experience, we analyze the behavior, the spontaneous behavior of the travelers at destination, right? What we do here is cross-analyzing, again, with social listening, what they do, what they talk about, what they visit, how they spend, not only how much, but also how they spend their budget when traveling to a destination, and also where they are, how they move, where they sleep by using mobile data, right? All that gives us a lot of information of what is actually happening at destination during a period, right? And finally, to end, the stage of opinion, of post experience, that give us a lot of information of the sentiment of the experience. Sentiment in terms of satisfaction, perception, etc., regarding the experience, the tourism products, the attractions, the services, accommodation, etc., right? Since this last step is gonna feed again or feedback the new travelers in terms of inspirational moments, right? This is basically how we approach the problem or the lack of information that we found in the sector when we start our company in 2013. So it's been almost 10 years now working for the travel sector, right? So from here, I'm done. As I promised, short presentation. Hate presentations on webinars, so I wanted to go really fast. And I'll go to the platform and make a specific example, right? But I'll give you now some time if you want to ask some question. We can just stop for 1 minute, 2 minutes, and you can ask me whatever you may need to clarify, if that's okay for you. Any consult?
Yeah. If you have any question, now is the time. Otherwise, while you are thinking, maybe we can continue, Carlos, with the presentation. And if anyone has a question, here I believe I have a cost. Pedro, if you want to open your mic and formulate the question, it's okay. Pedro Sam. Just to clarify what you mean.
Can you hear me?
With cost, like yeah, perfectly.
Oh, okay, sorry, I'm on my phone.
Yeah.
It's just that we were looking for similar solutions by telecom providers, and the cost was just prohibitive for a small, medium enterprise like ours. And we were thinking, you know, like, because usually all these data sets cost a lot of money, and they're usually out of reach of small, medium-sized companies. So we were wondering, you know, like, apart from the government-provided data sets, if there are other data sets besides, you know, Google Trends and, you know, like the ones published by the tourism agencies, if there's any other data set that's publicly or, you know, cost-effective, so to say.
You are muted, Carlos.
Sorry, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question, Pedro. Yeah, you're right that specifically the telecommunications data is really expensive. So far, one of the big challenges in our path into starting the company and providing services to companies or entities that don't have huge budget, it's been negotiating with those kind of providers in order to make them understand what are the necessities, but also the capacities of the sector. Even though the telecommunications data is one of the most expensive, along with the credit card data, right? So as you were mentioning, there are other data sets, other dimensions of information that can provide you a lot of information regarding the tourism and demand trends for your destination or the destination your company have interest, that may be much cheaper, much efficient in terms of investment. I'm focusing on, for example, the social listening part, the air connectivity part, the accommodation part. All that is based the most of the time in information data that we can gather freely in internet, right? So there is a cost of gathering all that data. I mean, there is a really huge structure in terms of technology to get and gather all that data and transform all the data in something valuable. But even though it's much cheaper than using these specific data sets that you need to buy bespoke for every project. That would be, for example, the telecommunication data sets or providers, right? So there is a lot of different options in order to tailor-made a service according to your specific capabilities in terms of budget. So we can talk about this in private, and I'll recommend you. Okay, anyone else? Okay.
No, you can continue, Carlos. Maybe later on we will have more questions.
Okay, so let's go for the main dish of the menu. I'll share the screen again. I'll show you how we transform all that data into information through a travel intelligence platform. And I'll go directly to one example regarding Barcelona and using real data, right? So, do you see a map?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is the environment that our clients get access when subscribing to our services. Our business model is a subscription-based model that includes all the information you want to activate regarding the destinations and the source markets you want to monitor. And then it also includes our advisory service. So it's not just about having information, it's about having advisory on how to use that, right? And just put it in context of what you're seeing. So as you see, we got several destinations. Well, we are right now monitoring around 850 destinations in the world. And we can provide different perspectives or dimensions of analytics according to the client needs, right? I'll show you an example of Barcelona, right? And I'll show you how this morning I briefly, in 5 minutes, identify what could be a really interesting segment or source market for a company in Barcelona, for a hotel chain in Barcelona for the next 3 months, just analyzing the contextual data, right? So I'm not gonna go through a demo and explain you all what is all the features of our platform, but directly go to the points that can enlighten this kind of questions and answers, right? So what would be a interesting segment for Barcelona for the next 3 months, and how I can identify a specific a smart pricing strategy for that market, right? So let's go. Going to the air connectivity, right? First of all, what I'm going to do is checking how the ease of accessibility of access facility to Barcelona is for the, let's say, the short haul markets during the next 3 months. So if you see the calendar on top, right, regarding the next 3 months, we're going to see how Barcelona is evolving in terms of inbound seats through its main airport, well, its unique airport, right, Barcelona's airport. We see as how in general, Barcelona is going to get 8.02 million of inbound seats during the next 3 months, which is an increase of 11% comparing to last year. But moving forward to what are the main source markets, international source markets, apart from the domestic, that would be Spain, right? We got Italy, UK, Germany, and France, 4 European source markets that are the most important for Barcelona for the next 3 months. And analyzing those 4, we see how Italy, for example, is the most important in terms of the total volume of inbound seats, will be 830,000 inbound seats for the next 3 months, and increasing 17% comparing to last year, to the 21, right? The same period last year. So that's a good sign for the Italian market for sure, because probably we will see much more Italians in Barcelona than last year, because they will have much more access facility by air, right? I mean, they can also accede to the destination by other ways of transport, but 95%, 90% of the Italians will get to Barcelona by air, right? So that's a good point. That's a good insight to start. Then what I'll do is check if the Italians has actually demand for Barcelona, because what we know here is that the airlines are planning to fly to Barcelona for the next three months more than last year. That's a good input, but we need to know if the demand of the Italians is higher or not for Barcelona, right? Thinking as a revenue manager of a hotel company. So if I go through the flight searches, for example, for the next 3 months again, and comparing to last year, I'll see how, for example, okay, comparing those 4 European markets, I'll see how the Italians has a good share on searches for Barcelona. And I'll explain this indicator because it's something that the first time you see it is a kind of strange. What we do here is analyzing the whole universe of flight searches that the Italians are doing globally, I mean, to any destination of the world. And we calculate what's the share of this spontaneous demand, because those are searches, not bookings yet. What's the share of this universe of searches for Barcelona in this case, right? So we know that out of every million of searches that the Italians are doing for any destination of the world, 7,000 of those are for Barcelona, right? So they have an interesting share of searches for Barcelona. Even though they are dropping a little, you see the graph, how is it evolving comparing to 1 year ago? So it's a little under last year, but still a good share of demand. How I know this is a good share of demand? Because if I compare this metric with the other markets I'm analyzing, for example, UK, you see how this is 5.5 key out of every million. Meanwhile, the Italians were 7. If we see the Germans, 5.2. If we see, for example, the French, 4.4, right? So according to this benchmark on source markets, Italians are the ones that have the best air connectivity for the next 3 months and the higher intensity of demand for the next 3 months. What are other inputs I can add to these conclusions? The flight prices, which is also really key in order to understand the potential demand of this market, but also their sensitiveness into the prices strategy, which is going deeper and more granular into making a specific decision, right? So this is the evolution graph of the flight prices to get to Barcelona from these markets for the next 3 months. This is a weekly evolution. We could see a monthly and daily, but if we see the weekly evolution, we can see how the Italians, who are this green at the bottom, has an average price much lower than the rest of the countries, right? The rest of the source markets we are comparing now. Meanwhile, the Germans are the ones that has a higher average price to fly to Barcelona. We could see the figures here. Italy's 110 euros average price to get to Barcelona for the next 3 months. Then we can compare legacy, low cost, etc., by airports, whatever we might need. Even though the prices are increasing seriously, you see 72% increase, right? But still the lower rate comparing to the other sources. We can see the other sources, 164 from UK, this is the average, 188 from Germany, the most expensive, and 154 euros in average for a flight ticket to get to Barcelona for the next 3 months. So what we see here basically is Italians will have more connectivity, they do have more intense demand, and which is really interesting for pricing purposes, they have the lowest rates in terms of air connectivity. What does that mean? That means that there will be probably less reactive to a let's say, not really aggressive strategy in terms of pricing. In other words, I would be, if I was a revenue manager, I wouldn't be really aggressive for the Italians' demand for the next 3 months, because I know that the flight tickets are going to be cheaper for them than the Germans, for example. You see the gap here. It's almost a 100 euros gap between Italians and Germans to get to Barcelona for the week of the 26th of June, right? So we know that when they look for going on vacation, even a short weekend break, what we do normally is, first of all, looking for the flights and then for the hotel, right? But then we make a pack of those in terms of investment for our vacation, our break, right? So the cheaper is the flight in average, the lower is our sensitiveness in terms of the price for the accommodation. And this is key, and this is something that some hotel chains are using nowadays in order to be reactive and have this smart pricing almost in real time. I would say almost, because this is not actually real time. We can do it, we can do daily updating, right? But not real time. I'll go through this concept of real time afterwards, right? But then we have more information about the Italians. So far, we know they're going to be interested, and we don't need to be really aggressive with them. But are they staying at hotels when flying to Barcelona? If we go to the accommodation data and the part of hotel satisfaction, we have a really good approximation of the most important markets for Barcelona in terms of hotel accommodation. What we see here is the top 10 markets in terms of reviews, hotel reviews for Barcelona, right? This is not occupancy, this is not bookings, but it's a really good approximation of the market share of Barcelona in terms of accommodation, hotel accommodation, right? What we see here is Italians are the second most important international market for Italy, for Barcelona, sorry. This is historical data during the last 3 months, right? So we know that Italians are gonna come. Italians are using accommodation in hotel in terms of accommodation. We can also see what's the interest, what's the category of hotels they are more interested in, right? Because this is a global approach, taking into account 772 hotels in Barcelona. But if we filter by categories, we see how in general, 9% of the hotel reviews of hotels in Barcelona, sorry, are from Italians. But if you go, for example, to the 3 stars only, we see how the Italians are more representative. That means that Italians probably are more interested in 3-star hotels than in 4 or 5, right? They reach 10% and the first international market for 3 stars in Barcelona. If we go to the 4 stars, we see how Italy drops in position, loses 1 position against France. So they are the 3rd in terms of international market for the 4 stars. And if we analyze the 5 stars, we'll see a different pattern again. And we see how Italy is going down on the list, right? So Italians are using hotels in Barcelona, but the most of them are going for 3 stars, right? And they're gonna come much more than last year. They have high demand and they have low rates in terms of air connectivity. Last input, but not less important, what are the spending patterns? So we know that the Italians are looking for not the higher level of hotels, but when in destination, how they spend, how they behave on their spending patterns. Going through the spend information, and again, this is real information about Barcelona, we see how, even though this is the benchmark of the average spend by card holder during the stay in Barcelona, right? This is MasterCard's data. I mean, this is just a part of their pattern of behavior, but is representative enough. We see how the Italians are not the ones spending the most during their stay, comparing, for example, to let's compare with the other European markets, to the UK, Germans, or French, right? They are actually the ones that are spending less during their stay using credit card. But if we go to analyze how they spend, and again, comparing those 4 markets.
Sorry to interrupt you, Carlos. I think we have a question. Ivaya, if it's okay, if you want her to ask you the question, just because maybe it's related to this specific thing that you're explaining right now. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, Ivaya, you can open your mic and ask the question to Carlos.
Thank you. Carlos, it was regarding the previous point, just to know if when you are looking to the accommodation satisfaction, can you also filter with the holiday rentals, not hotels?
Yes. Actually, we have a separate part of the tool in order to analyze the holiday rentals, right? So if we go to the holiday rentals option, we could analyze the patterns of every visitor every visitor on Barcelona, but also the overall offer of holiday rentals in Barcelona, right? So yes, we can cover both.
But regarding the reviews as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Back to the part of the spending patterns, I was mentioning how the Italians are probably not the first in terms of total spend when at destination, but it's interesting to see how they actually spend, how they spread their expenditure during the stay. And comparing again the same source markets in Barcelona, we could see how, for example, the Italians are the ones with the highest share in terms of investment for accommodation. You see here, probably it's too small, but 18%, almost 19% of their expenditure is focused on accommodation. So that doesn't mean that the total spend is higher than the Germans, for example, but the share they apply on accommodation is higher than the European markets. The same would be for almost tying with the UK with restaurants, right? So they have a really specific profile in terms of spending, and they do focus their expenditure in accommodation and gastronomy, right? Rather than other merchant categories that we can analyze using this data set, right? So to end, what we know about the next 3 months in Barcelona, we know that it's going to be more Italians for sure, because there is demand, there is more air connectivity, and there is really good prices. We know they use hotels, especially 3-star hotels, and regarding the budget, they prefer to invest more in accommodation and gastronomy than in other activities when at destination. So if I was a revenue manager, I would take this into account in order to apply a dynamic pricing when I have a consult request from Italy, right? In order to be probably not as aggressive as I would do for Germans, probably, because I know that in the case of flight prices, the Germans were the ones that has a higher, a higher average prices to get to Barcelona, right? Even though this is pretty strategic, right, and operative, we could do this kind of decisions daily. I mean, I'm talking about the next 3 months, and we can have a strategic point here regarding the Italian market and say, look, I'm going to apply a differential of X% when a booking request is coming from Italy, right? But then I can have a daily strategy, right? And this is most close to what we call real-time data. I don't really like to use real-time data concept because even though we are able to provide real-time to our clients, the most of our clients are not actually ready to use real-time data. So in my opinion, the most of the times is a waste of money and time, especially money, trying to get real-time data if we cannot apply that information in real time, right? And that's not that easy. In terms of dynamic pricing, it can be automatic and can be applied, but this is not actually real so far, right? I'm talking about my experience. But we could do it daily, which is not real time, but almost real time, right? So if we go to analyze daily how this is evolving, we could see how even at some points there are markets like France where the rates are lower than the Italian rates to get to Barcelona, right? So we could go and analyze, see here for how the UK had a peak, an important peak during this period, and this could be related to what's going on now in UK. Something probably it's affecting these prices for this sort of market, and so this is really interesting to have a daily approach, a daily update of information of not only the prices but all the rest of insights I was sharing, in order to see how we can make more efficient decisions. Actually, the most of the times it's not a matter of having more occupancy. It's a matter of having more profitability of our strategy, right? Which is the case of Barcelona. I mean, normally Barcelona don't have problems of occupancy, right, in general, but hoteliers can be more or less efficient by knowing the context and the future trends. I hope this is a good example to showcase how we could use this information in an operative way. Again, and back to the screen, I'm open to take your questions, comments. I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Carlos. This presentation was very, very interesting, especially because the integration of these diverse data points enables businesses to better understand their target audience, identify emerging trends, and tailor their services to meet customer demands. So it was very, very interesting. And I believe we have a question here in the chat, which is how granular is the location selection? Is it limited to major cities, or could you select the smaller cities, for example, Zamora?
Yes, I mean the granularity, the geographical granularity can be from a country to a small location. I mean, there is no limitations in terms of geographical granularity. The only limitation we could find is the availability of data at that level, right? But we work for really small destinations in Spain and Europe, and also countries with the same methodology, so it can be applied, yeah.
Perfect. So I invite you all as well, if you have any question, just to raise your hand up, and I will give you the word. So I think almost everything is clear. I think, Carlos, that you made like an excellent presentation. Here we have one question of Nuno. Nuno, please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Carlos. I have a question regarding the conversion rate. Is it possible to know, like, for instance, let's say that 100 people search for Barcelona from Italy, but only actually 2 people book a flight or a rental house for Barcelona. Is it possible to know these conversion rates, or like the data that you give, it's only based on the searches?
It is, thank you for the question. It is difficult to have conversion rates because there are different dimensions. I mean, what we do is combining the analytics of different dimensions that which are not linked between each other, right? Since we get data from different sources, we can correlate that data and interpret that, but not really calculating an occupancy rate or as you mentioned, in a ratio regarding the part of how many of those visitors are actually, and in an accurate way, staying in a hotel or in a holiday rental. It's not that easy. I mean, we can interpret that information, but not having the precise metric. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there any other question? Yeah, I think, Pedro, you have another one. Is there any social demographics data? Is this available to establish a visitor profile?
Yes, this is a part of the tool what we haven't go through, but another of the great utilities of what we do is drawing a profile, segmentation and profiling the demand, right? What we do is by using the social listening, we identify their perception, interest, and also demographic profile of the visitors to a destination, right? By using the public information they share in social networks, right? By using all that information, what we do is extrapolate the penetration of the usage of certain social networks by countries, by ages, by gender, etc. And we extract and extrapolate all that information to have a profile in demographics, again, interest and perceptions.
More questions for Carlos?
Just to add, yeah. Regarding this last question, this is more focused on marketing normally than in revenue management. Today I was focusing specifically on an example of smart pricing, but we have a lot of different examples in terms of marketing and segmentation proposals.
Okay, thank you, Carlos, again for the presentation. And thank you all for participating today to this webinar. As I mentioned before, this was the third webinar that we're organizing under the tourism project. I'm inviting you to attend to next webinar to be organized next week, 31st of May, which is focused on new communication technologies and SMEs in the tourism sector. We will share with you the link for the registration here. And also, you can find this session recorded in our website as well in YouTube. So we are here for any questions that you may have. You can contact us directly. Thank you again to all for attending today, and hope to see you next time.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good day.